First of all, I'd like to say hello again. My name is Cindy Bishop, and I will be your host this evening. And for those of you who are familiar with Dragonfly, you may remember our very successful summit from last year where we brought together thought and business leaders, activists, entrepreneurs, politicians, celebrities, to really delve deep into all things women empowerment and education. And so we decided to continue our message to inspire and to provide information and also to build our community. But for this year, it is going to be through an online presence. I think everyone can agree that the last few months have been pretty unsettling. But as we look ahead to the future, as daunting and as unsettling as it may be, we take comfort that we are not alone and that we have a powerful Dragonfly community here to support and to share with us. And so that's why we thought it was fitting that for our very first theme of Dragonfly Reset, we go back to basics and we reclaim what it is that make us women. And so for our Let's Talk Period series, we come together every Thursday to learn more about, to talk about how to nurture our health, how to reset our bodies, and also to harness our female energy in order to be our best selves. And very excited to introduce our first guest. She is Siti Aishah. She's an activist and founder of Spot community program in Malaysia that provides comprehensive sexual education to girls aged 9 to 12 years old. And she believes that educating girls on sexual education helps to shape confident and resilient girls. So welcome, Aisha. Hi.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Great. I was like, oh no. Welcome. Thank you.
I'm glad that I'm a dragonfly now, not a dinosaur.
Yes, you are. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. I think this is a topic that is extremely important, and judging from the feedback of our community, one that many people want to learn more about. I know as a mother, it's something that I am also very keen on making sure that I get it right. But this is something that I would love to delve deep with you a little bit. And we're going to talk to you for about 30 minutes, and then we're going to open up the floor to some questions from our audience as well. How does that sound?
Fantastic. Let's get started.
Great. Just a little few housekeeping notes as well. For those of you who are joining our webinar via Zoom, you are free to comment in the chat below. If you have any questions, please go ahead and do so. We'll be collecting them and then try to answer them at the end. For those of you who are watching us on Facebook, again, you can leave a comment in the section below. And yeah, we will try to answer any questions that you have. So, Aisha, can we start off by telling us a little bit about how you came to start Spot and the work that you are doing?
Thank you, Cindy. It started out many years ago, actually, while I was still studying in University of Malaya. I volunteered as an enumerator for a project on diseases among urban communities that was with the University of Malaya Medical Center. My task was to gather information for medical doctors and researchers from families living in the government-funded apartment complexes. And from that experience, I discovered a lack of awareness amongst the lower income bracket of how dangerous their outlook on the topic of sex and sexuality is. Somehow this outlook had unfortunately perpetuated the practice of child marriage as a solution to sexual impropriety. So during that time, I also realized that the children in the housing area were extremely vulnerable to predators and abusers. They were often left alone and unsupervised for a long period of time. And because of that, I started my own research because I felt, that something needs to be done. I stumbled upon CSE, Comprehensive Sexuality Education, And then I decided to create Spot. So that's how it started.
That's yeah, that's amazing. I think that the whole concept of comprehensive sexuality education, I'm confounded that it's such a new concept. You know, this is something that we should have been teaching our children from centuries
Forever.
ago, but it seems to be such um, a taboo topic still. It's such a sensitive issue, and so that's, I think, um, is almost the root of so many of these misunderstandings, these misconceptions, this hush hush um, sense
Attitude towards
around,
it.
exactly, attitude around just normal human and physical development. And so
Bodily functions as well.
exactly, bodily functions. And
Yeah.
so what would you say the main mission of Spot is right now, and what's your most urgent issue that you would like to address?
The main mission for Spot, all the activities actually addresses the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 3, 4, and 5 directly, which is health and well-being, gender equality, and quality education. It's quality education first, and then gender equality. But Spot itself, when I started it, there were three main concerns that we wanted to address, which is preventing child sexual abuse, reducing unsafe sex practices amongst children, and also to prevent child marriages. Those are the urgent issues that we wanted to address in Malaysia.
So not just in Malaysia, I feel like in the
It's
world, but
relevant throughout the world, yes.
specifically in Asia. And when we're in Thailand too, like I mentioned before, there's a hesitation to really just have open and honest conversations with our not just girls, our boys as well. And so, what age would you say we should start talking about puberty to our children?
Wow, we're getting there already. Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, yes, thank you so much for asking this question, because I'm very sure that a lot of our viewers want to know this. Um, it's a lifelong conversation. It starts with simple concepts. It builds over time as the capacity to understand increases. So you start with the foundation with your young children by teaching them about bodily autonomy, saying no to things that makes them uncomfortable, and how to differentiate the safe touches and the unsafe touches. It's actually more for you. You have to start when they are still unable to respond. You need to start practicing then before they can actually talk back to you. Why I say start as early as possible is because we are all born as sensual creatures. You need to educate them before it turns sexual. In terms of, say, if you already have a 6-year-old and now you're listening to this, I would say start now. Adolescence is also a great time to build healthy habits and lifestyle relating to sex, because it is a period of ongoing physical, emotional, and social changes. I would say 10 or 11 is a good age to start, to help them explore their own sexuality safely and develop strong, good, healthy relationships outside of the family. So 10 or 11, but start as soon as possible while they're baby,
Yeah,
while they're
it's
zero.
true. It's true. And you know, there's this idea like, oh my gosh, I can't talk to my children about that. And this is something that I have a lot of conversations. I've done, you know, workshops for parents here in Thailand as well about how to just have a conversation. And it's not just that the act itself, it's so much more than that. It's gender identity. It's how you respond to affection. It's how you relate to other people. It's how you um, show your autonomy with your own body space and what's acceptable and what's not, you know. And it starts from when, you know, your child sees you in the shower and go, mommy,
Yes.
what's that? Or why do you not look like, you know. And those are, I call them golden opportunities, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Very
that
true.
that curiosity of a child, and it, you can literally change the way they think of this for the rest of their life, just based on that first instinct where you blurt something out, right? If it's a positive thing or like neutral, non-judgment, oh, honey, this is, a woman's body, blah, blah, blah. Or in many cases, I hear in traditional Thai families, it's like, swat the hand of the child away and go, don't touch that. It's dirty. Or, and it's like, that's where the damage happens, unfortunately, whether we know it or not. And so this is such an important message that, as with everything parenting, you need to think ahead, know that those questions are coming, and how are you going to answer them in a, non-judgmental, informative,
And
age-appropriate way.
Yes, it has to be helpful. Yes.
Right. And this idea that, oh no, we're just going to wait until they reach puberty before we have the talk is it's a bit late, because as we know now, there's so much access to information. If they don't hear it from you, they're going to go find it
Exactly. And
somewhere else.
most of the exposure are actually accidental. So because you're not able to be with your children all the time, it is best that you give them the information beforehand, so that in the instances whereby they are not with you, you know that they can come back to you and share with you their experiences, and letting you know that how they feel about it. Because really, Cindy, most of the time, it's accidental exposure at the ages as young as 3 and 4. So yeah, we need to still protect them by educating them. So start as soon as possible.
I agree wholeheartedly. Since we're talking about, puberty, and for girls especially, of course, with all the emotional changes that happen, there's also practical things that we need to decide, right? Whether it's what kind of sanitary product they're going to use. Now, there's also a lot of debate about this too. I don't know if it's the same in Malaysia, but for example, the use of tampons here are not as popular as, say, pads. And then there's menstrual cups are coming to be a thing now. And so all these decisions that we as mothers will probably have to talk with our girls. But then there's this whole other topic of period poverty and these things that we take for granted, or even, I'm so bothered by it. Many girls all over the world do not even have the luxury of having that. And I know you work in this area as well. So can you tell us a little bit, for those of our viewers watching who may not understand the topic of period poverty, what is it and what can we do to change it?
Period poverty affects, I think, like in Malaysia itself, I'm very sure at least 1 in 20 girls at some point in their adolescence life. And we have had instances whereby, the girl is going to a school that is literally just 7 minutes away from one of the largest shopping malls in Petaling Jaya. So in Malaysia, period poverty is something that the government is looking at, a lot of NGOs and communities are looking at. The definition of period poverty is actually the lack of access to the menstrual products, and also lack of information in regards to menstruation. So sports activities actually addresses the education part, the information. And with our work, whenever we come across schools that need more help in terms of providing sanitary products, we always have people who are helping in that manner. So sports work actually addresses period poverty in Malaysia as well. And we're hoping to be able to get more information in other parts of Malaysia, because currently our works are heavily in only 6 states. So we're hoping to be able to get it, to get information nationwide, so we are able to have a more structured, systemic help to offer the children who are affected by period poverty. But yes, in Malaysia, some of them actually still use coconut husks which is very dangerous. It's reported that they've been using newspapers or any type of paper, tissue, and of course they use t-shirts and kain batik to actually help you know hold the blood, and then they'll either just chuck it or they wash it and then reuse it again.
It's amazing in this modern day and age that we still have such a lack of information and just a lack of basic essentials, you know, and there's such a disparity between the privileged and those who don't. And so that's something I think as women and also girls who are going through or going to be going through puberty to be aware of, and that this is probably a fight that we should all join hands and help each other. And there's a way, you know, to educate our girls that this is as cumbersome and as like, oh, I don't want to have to go through this, you know. It is we still have it very, very well. We're much luckier than so many others.
We are.
Brings me to my next question, and that is, there seems to be so much stigma or taboos or, you know, myths and stereotypes surrounding a woman's period. It's quite fascinating. If you've seen any of our Dragonfly, you know, clips, that we did a whole one about period myths from all over the world, and some of them are funny, some of them are strange. I think there's one from Malaysia where it's like, if you don't wash your sanitary napkins, the ghosts will come and get you or something.
Yes, the Ponti babies. Yes. Surprisingly enough, in schools, I would say there's always a 50-50 answer to that. Actually, most of the girls would go into we have two circles, right? One is a yes, one is a no. They will all say that it's true. It's not a myth. So most of them, 80% I would say. So that's the work that we're doing. We need to.
So, I mean, you know, we can laugh at some of these myths, laugh at some of the ones that are quite funny, but
some of them are quite traumatic as well.
Other taboos that like actually affect a woman in so much more traumatizing ways. In Nepal, I think they have to be separated from the family. You can't even enter the house or places of worship. And it's just, how did we get to this point where, you know, our menstrual cycles are the reason people are born? This is a miracle of life. Our bodies literally, women's bodies literally go through a miracle every month. How did it become such a dirty thing? I don't understand.
It's very sad. I know, it's like, oh my God, I'm so dirty whenever I'm on my period.
It didn't come from us. So why?
But yes. I don't have the exact answer, but of course, everyone has been talking about how that stigma is perpetuated by, you know, cultural taboos, discrimination, poverty, lack of education, and of course, silence. You know, I feel that we have inherited the inability to speak about periods. We don't speak about our periods because our mothers didn't speak about our periods. In my opinion, part of the discomfort is actually due to the fact that talking about periods will actually lead or it strikes too uncomfortably close to another topic parents don't want to talk about, which is sex. So of course, you know, it's the whole how do I say this, myth of how you are dirty, you are heaty, you know, it's when the menstrual blood is viewed as an abomination of the body. So because of that, we end up hiding our periods, right? But I believe, you know, we should stop that at us. We should feel joy and gratitude about our period always, because like you said just now, periods are normal, it's non-toxic, and without it there would be no babies. It's a miracle in itself. And sometimes it sucks, it's painful, you have to deal with cramps and all that, but sometimes it doesn't, and it's time that people deal with it. Talk about it, get yourselves educated, speak about it in a positive light. You remove the shame, remove the stigma. It has to start with you.
Exactly. And that's like every other topic that is unspoken. Once we shed light on it, there's more understanding, there's more sense of belonging, and that this is something that every single woman on the planet has had to deal with before, and we are in it together. And that, I remember my mom telling me, I mean, this was, the generation difference between my mother not being told anything that she was getting her period, and one day, it happened, and she literally thought she was dying. And then how she prepared me, which, to her credit, she did it as best she could, not how I'm doing it with my daughter, which is like bombarding her with all this information.
Mom!
But she never made me feel shamed about it. She actually made it like an event for me to look forward to. She said, "That's when you're gonna be a woman," and I'm like, "What?" But it was a positive thing, and so I thank her for that, and I'm so grateful for that experience. And so that's probably what I want for a lot of the moms that may be watching here, and maybe many of the girls that are watching here as well. How do we then embark on this journey together? What are some tips or practical tips that you would like parents to know? I know we touched a little bit on that about, just honesty and open conversation and facts, but let's go through some of these tips.
Shall I break it down to age groups, do you think? Or like...
Yeah, age groups. I think we have some signs here. Okay, here we go.
Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, and as Cindy had mentioned earlier, it's a lifelong conversation. It starts with simple concepts and it builds over time as your child's capacity to understand increases. So you start with simple stuff, but for your own self, you need to remember that your attitude matters so much. Just like how Cindy said just now, don't go around and smacking their hands when they're touching their genitals in front of people, or when they're running around naked. You need to prepare yourself. You need to get educated. You need to always remember, find those times as golden opportunities to instill your family values. And you need to always do it in a very calm and open manner. They will ask questions. You will need to be prepared with answers. And you need to make sure that you let them know that, they can always come to you and ask you anything, and they will not get into trouble for it. So that you can make sure that they're getting the right information from you. So you need to be the source. And to do that, you need to set the tone. Exactly. And you need to be very, very clear about the rules.
And just a little bit here, as parents, I think we over worry about making sure that we give the right answers all the time. It's okay if you don't know. I mean, I've been in a couple situations where it's like, I really don't know how to answer that. So my advice would be like, great question. It's a little bit more complicated than I can give you the answers right now. Let me get back to you on that. And that's fine too, but then do follow up with them, right?
Of course. Yeah. You don't want to leave them hanging. Otherwise, they're going to go around and try and figure out, try to get answers.
They will find out on their own.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the next age group? I mean, the first age group.
I would say we can start with the preschoolers. Yes, yes, you can see on the screen. Teach them the right words. You have to use vulva, vagina, or the minora labia. Sorry. Labia minora, labia majora, everything. Use the exact words. Don't use, all these nicknames. say penis, say testicles is fine. You know, you need to teach them the right words exactly for their right exact body parts. And
Yep.
you need to let them know, you need to teach them how to tell you how their body is feeling. If they don't feel comfortable, if they don't feel unsafe, if they're feeling unhappy, always have that conversation, because it is your job to make sure that they learn what's appropriate in a way that doesn't make them feel ashamed of their bodies, just like how Cindy said just now. So things like, instead of, you know, when you see them running naked, instead of saying, hey, why are you running around naked, it's so disgusting, love, you know, say something along the manner of, you know, we're having dinner, please put a shirt on. Mommy and daddy have their shirts on, so you should do the same as well. You know, things like that. But always, when
In a
you talk about
calm,
your bodies,
non-judgmental way. Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly.
sorry. Also use bath times, like you said just now, Cindy, and getting dressed in the morning or putting on the pajamas at night. Those are
Yep.
very, very good times to go all over. To go over their body parts, and yeah, make sure that their body is theirs and theirs alone and nobody else's. So for 2 to 9 years of age, I would say that. And you need to also touch on boundaries and personal safety. You know, that's very, very important. And how it is never okay for someone to pressure them to show their body or their body parts if they don't want to, be in
Exactly.
real life or online.
Exactly. These are all very, very crucial topics, and it just underpins the fact that you don't need to be talking about the act of having sex to be providing comprehensive sexuality education. These are basic, fundamental values that we need to be teaching our children from day one.
To keep
I am
safe.
actually writing a children's book for Thailand just around these as well, aimed at 5-year-olds to 8-year-olds, you know, talking about what their body parts are, body boundaries, all of that stuff. So this is something that every parent should be doing already. And if you haven't, then please do as soon as possible. And yeah, for sure, the nicknames, that's a big one. You know, we have lots of silly, funny nicknames. And if a child cannot express or even identify the very normal and natural parts of all of their body, then that there's something.
You're basically sending them a message that those body parts are not to be talked about, or there's a sense of shame that's tied to it. You know, you don't call your hand Mimi.
Exactly.
Why would you have to call your vulva a shishi?
A cookie, or I don't know what. And that's exactly, it's quite a big thing here in Thailand. I Googled, you know, my body is my body on the internet, and there's these diagrams of your human body, and every single organ is labeled except the genitals or the private parts, and I was just like, something's missing here. And so that's something we need to
literally
yes, literally missing.
there's a void there. We don't know what happened. We don't know what those are.
No, let's not talk about that. Okay, so 2 to 9-year-olds, now we get into the ages of around 10 to 14, and this is preteen. This is when the real changes start to happen, and this can be it can be quite an exciting age for everyone involved. My daughter's going at 11.
That is right. Actually, it's more exciting for the parents than it is for the kids. It
definitely keeps us on our toes.
It's just that those age 10 to 14 is just super awkward, and you need to keep them as close as possible to you. It is the time of big changes, you know, not just physically but also mentally and socially. It's the time that they start to build their own identities. So for some preteens, it can be very positive because it's happening in a very supportive environment. But it can be very awkward, very scary, or alarming for others, you know. So for girls, you can talk to them about the body changes that's happening, and also talk to them about menstruation, talk to them about period. For boys, you have to talk to them about also the body changes and ejaculations and erections. It's also a very good time to talk about sex and pregnancy, in between the ages of 11 and 13, because it's the time that you bring them to take their HPV vaccines. So that's, you know, it's one of those golden opportunities that you said just now to actually.
Yeah, and I think here when you said keep them close, I think that is something really, really powerful, especially for our girls. I think that girls go through an extremely volatile time, and I remember when we all went through that. It's just like everything's in overdrive. But don't save the conversations just for these important topics. Make sure that you also have conversations about everything else. Talk to them about their day, talk to them about who they're talking, they're hanging out with, who's their best friend at the moment. And so don't just save those conversations, because then it becomes like, oh God, mom wants to talk to me again. You know what I mean?
So random.
It needs to be interspersed with so many other fun, non like heavy conversations as well.
Very true. Very, very true. So
then, yeah.
As I mentioned, it can be awkward for the parents as well as the kids. It's not just a one-way situation. But Cindy, you're right. Keeping them close, meaning, get involved, always be there for them. And what Cindy said earlier on really applies here. If you don't know the answers to some of their questions, tell them that you're gonna get back to them.
Or even make it just be like, that's interesting, let's find that out together.
Yes.
They're at an age 10 to 14, they're well capable of looking and researching something together, and make it a journey of discovery together, and be like, wow, I did not know that.
And also an opportunity to instill your family values, and talking about your heritage, and how your own parents handled menstruation or puberty, or the changes that's happening in their lives. That would be a very interesting way to connect with family history and heritage.
What about 14 and beyond? Now it's like, now we prep them and then we let them go.
I know, but yes, don't let them go yet. No, we have to hold on to them.
No, not yet.
Yes, not yet. So during this time, they have already built a set of identities, like this is how they behave with you, this is how they behave with their friends, this is how they behave within their own private space. So continue these conversations about family values, as I mentioned just now. Build a healthy body image, which is so important, and healthy sex and reproductive outlook. It's okay to talk about your genitals. It's okay to be curious about them. Again, as I mentioned just now, share about your family history. Take pride in your heritage. Small conversations like this, small inputs like this can actually lead to a very rich conversation that will help you understand how she is feeling, or he is feeling, your teenager, but also help them to understand you better, and you need to always remind them that it is normal for breasts, penises, nipples, labias, testicles, and clitoris to come in different shapes and sizes and colors. Make sure you tell them, everything they need to know about menstruation, about sexual thoughts and feelings, about wet dreams, about orgasms during sleep, and of course, masturbation. It's best that it comes from you than other people, especially their own friends. So those are the stuff that you need to cover.
I really, yeah, the reminding that every body is beautiful and different, and that, and it's not a competition,
It's not a
'cause
competition. Yes.
inevitably it's going to be like, mommy, she got hers before me, and
Yeah.
all
It's
this
like, it's
stuff.
okay.
It's
That
not.
wasn't your fault. I got it when I was 14. It's fine.
um yeah, I think it's just set. It's so important that we just make it, normalize it, and make it something that they can really come back to us, and not feel weird or ashamed or anything like
Yeah.
that. Creating
Yeah.
that safe space is truly important.
Exactly.
All right. Wow. We've covered a lot. Is there anything, I think it may, shall we see if there's any questions before we sign off?
Okay.
Courage. So we have one here that is from Mika. How can we encourage dads and boys to be involved in the conversations around periods? I love this because I feel like so many um, of us women even think that it's just the conversation for us to deal with, when in fact, like you said, if we're going to talk about it, we need to be able to open the conversation up to everyone. So how would you say we could encourage the boys?
Thank you for the question, Mika. You bring them into the conversation, most definitely, and get them involved in even researching together, not just having the conversation. Normalize the whole thing. Get them to buy the pads for you, and always discuss bodies within a safe space of the family members. Sometimes the thing is, the boys don't feel safe to actually speak about, to let their curiosity known. So it's best, like for example with sport, the reason why I start with girls only is because, number one, girls gets their periods first, right? So they go through puberty first. Boys will go through puberty a bit later. And then the other fact is that there had been a lot of researches that stated gender-specific programs actually work way better. So you need to educate them separately and then bring them together in a conversation, and make sure the conversation is conducted in a very calm and open manner, and always instill your family values, and make sure it's positive, but get them involved, get into the conversation. Use times like, when you're running to the supermarket to get your pads. That's a very beautiful time for your baby boy or your teenage son to actually get involved.
Yeah, for sure.
Some of the boys who actually help their mom out would be very open to talk about things like this with their girlfriends. And I've seen this happening. Like, my youngest brother, he helps me with sport, and he volunteers. He became at 14, he became the epicenter of people wanting to know about sexually transmitted infections, not just menstruation or puberty centric, but things like that. And he was so empowered by it. And he's a boy. The people who were asking him questions were actually all girls. So
that's amazing. And that's what we need more of. We need to bring more of the boys and men into this conversation and have them become true allies and advocates for us as well. I know I've got, my daughter's almost 11 and my son's turning 8 in a few weeks. And we're very open. I mean, this is something that I'm advocating for. And so he's just knows everything pretty much. He's noticed that what the sanitary products in my bathroom, and he's like, "Mommy, what's that?" And I'm like, "Well, I guess you could say they're diapers for me. I wear them." But it's his sister is actually going through the course in her grade right now. So all about watching. He sits there and I find all these YouTube videos. There's so much content out there that's available for us to show our children, all age appropriate and funny and like, what, the sperm and the egg, what, you know? So honestly there's no excuse, and so that we need to instill that.
As a matter of fact, all the guy friends that I have who are very well versed with what I do, each and every one of them actually came and said, I need to learn this so that I'm able to not just help, you know, my family members, but also my future wife and my future daughters. So that's a very beautiful thought, you know.
It is. We have another question from Racina. How do we talk to our kids about having sex and not just safe sex? Coming from conservative backgrounds, whereas we as parents had sex when we got married, how do we handle this with our children?
That's a very good question. Thank you so much. Racina, was it?
Yeah.
Racina. Well, in my opinion, from the experience of running Spot, you need to talk about it because it's best that it comes from you and not anywhere else. Number one, you are a source that your children actually trust most. And also, number two, by providing them with the information, you are able to give them, you know, the right information instead of them looking for it elsewhere. How to talk about sex and not safe sex? Sorry, I didn't really get the question.
Basically, just coming from conservative background, not just having safe sex, but perhaps, you know, having sex before getting married. And that's something that is perhaps different considering the generation gap.
Ah, okay. Well, I would just say, but this is just me. I would just say you need to talk to them about it. Instill family values. You can always go, you know, you share your own experience. I only started having sex after I got married to your dad. This is what we did. These were our challenges. But right now I can see out there, this is what's happening. And have that honest and open conversation with your children by sharing your experiences and the experiences of your own parents. That is how you instill your family values. You know, you talk about how everyone else in the family had been dealing with all these topics, but always when you educate them, get the right information. You can get onto Planned Parenthood. They have a YouTube channel with amazing helpful information, which are also age appropriate. Because I don't think she included the age of her children, did she?
No. I think, you know, it really does come down to your own family values, the boundaries that you set, but everything based on honesty and factual information. Of course, every family is different. Of course, every situation is different. We cannot be able to say this is a one size fits all for every family. You are the one that knows your child the most. And perhaps that is something that, like I said, it's a learning process. You take it as it comes, and sometimes you can't plan for anything. Sometimes you have to roll with the punches, you know, and see where it goes. I mean, looking back at our lives, we have done probably lots of a variety of things, and so, you know, just knowing that there's a safe haven, or perhaps even if you need support as a parent, or if you're a teenager and you're not getting every answer that you want from your parents, know that there are so many resources. There are so many other sources of information as well.
Yeah. Contact Spotline. We're here, so it's fine.
Exactly. I think we are almost, our time is up.
Wow, so soon.
Let me just check. Is there any more questions? How about, there's one more. How can older teens and boys do in order to normalize this topic? I think we touched on that already in terms of just providing a safe space. Older teens, boys and girls, can be advocates for this as well in terms of, you know, being a voice for open and honest communication around this topic as well, and also just being allies in terms of promoting healthy, respectful relationships.
Very true. Yes.
Once you get into the teenage years,
Yes.
you get into, you know, topics of bullying, of perhaps some unwanted advances, and how do you navigate that, you know? So if you as a boy see something that's not right, be the one to stand up and say, hey, that's not cool, don't treat her like that.
Very
Or
true.
as a girl, you know, instead of bashing another girl, stand up and lift each other up. And so those are the conversations I think our older teens should be thinking about, or using their voice in that positive manner as well. Right. So I think our time is up. I could talk about this topic for many more hours. So maybe we'll have you back in some other capacity, Aisha. But thank you so much. Thank you for all the work that you do. Thank you for being, you know, such a valuable resource of information, and help for so many girls. So I'm gonna just leave you with a little bit of call to action. How can we support you as a community, or any upcoming projects that you have for us?
Thank you, Cindy. So please follow us on our Instagram at Hello Spot Girl. We're a team of small volunteers with big dreams to inspire and educate and empower girls. So please support us by donating to our cause. Head on to our website and click on Fund Us for details. Also, watch out for our webinar event, and there's an ebook option to donate as well for World Children's Day, but that's on 20th of November. So I really hope I'll be able to come back soon and yeah, speak to you guys again soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I just wanted to let everybody who's watching know that this is the first of our series. For those of you who missed it, would you like to catch up later? We will be having it on our Facebook page as well as our YouTube channel, so check that out. And for our next interview, next Thursday, I'll be talking with Dr. Eric Fleischman. We're going to be talking about hormone health, which is something that every woman should know more about, and how we could be taking better care of ourselves in every age group. So definitely stay tuned for that. Lots of really practical, valuable information as well. So thank you again, Aisha.
That's our hashtag.
Oh, love it. Nothing to hide?
Yeah. Love, respect, tolerance, and inclusion.
Awesome.
Those are our values. Thank you so much, Cindy. Thank you, Dragonfly.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. See you next Thursday.